Oh, hello, handsome. How you doing? Welcome to another Office Hours capsule. That's right. Giving you a bite-sized piece of, I don't know, medicine, I guess? It's probably a bad analogy. Keeping you up to date on Star Citizen news, lore, and more. This capsule is the monthly report for July 2025. But before we get into that, if you've been watching this in the past, or if this is your first time doing it, I would ask now, if you are enjoying this, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more of these that come out, because I do these every month, and comment down below. It does help. All of that stuff helps kind of tell YouTube that this guy is awesome. Please, more Star Citizen people should be watching it. If you're a fan of Star Citizen, you should be watching that. And that would help out to grow the channel. And if you enjoy this, come join us live. Twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, YouTube.com/TheAstroPub Live. I do these on Thursdays, not monthly reports every Thursday, but I do my office hours every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, where we talk about Star Citizen lore, news, and more. We just did an insider look at Dr. Yorit, who from ASD, from the Stormbreaker and the new Onyx facilities, who's being set up to be a quite interesting character who might be a antagonist, a running antagonist in the Star Citizen universe, which will lead to me doing a lore video on the Astro Historian about him. We do things like we look at the roadmap roundups, we look at latest videos that CIG releases, and I try to pull as much context of development together to talk about like what you should expect from Star Citizen in the long term. So if you like all that, please join us live. With that all being said, let's look into the July monthly report, noting this is a full read through of the monthly report, not a summary. I'm going to read you everything that is said and give you context for some things which, if you haven't been following along for the years I've been doing this, should give you some ideas of what CIG is doing, especially as they said, oh, in last month we talked about such and such, to give you that context. So, without any further ado, let's jump into it. All right. So, PU monthly report for July 2025. This is a very big spoiler that CIG is hitting at you, but this is a 4.3 thing. You'll see it if you get to it. With last month's patch launching and a new one fast approaching, no Star Citizen dev has been short of things to do. Read on all the things, the latest development updates from each team, including AI, ships, core gameplay, narrative, and VFX. AI content. July saw the AI content team continue its ongoing initiatives mentioned in recent monthly reports, including the push to the new combatant wildline sets, which will be completed following some integration. So for those of you who don't know, the last month they talked about the combatant wildline were effectively, they're trying to make combatant wildline. So if you're fighting somebody, either in FPS and in ship combat, to be more regular and varied. So it's not just overwhelming you with the same stuff, but also more context driven in terms of what's happening. Using the technology they've developed for the wildlines in stations. So if you go to like stations or like landing zones and you start hearing two NPCs talk, it's that sort of technology they do. The team also revisited shop behaviors to look at for new opportunities to make the population feel more interactive. For example, leveraging the recent behavior found in medical stations, where NPCs voice their concerns about the regen crisis, to add even more lore and flavor. AI tech also planned for several of their upcoming releases, outlining the required work and highlighting potential obstacles they will need to support to overcome in order to deliver in the intended experience. Alongside this, the team continued to support the mission and design teams in implementing additional comms calls into the game. Basically, they've been doing a big push to try to make the game more immersive and more flavorful in general. It's just the direction they've gone. AI features. In July, the AI features team continued to develop new creatures, including prototype gameplay for a boss fight. Boss fight! As part of this, new tech was created that makes this process faster and more iterative, providing a better toolkit for the designers by compartmentalizing behaviors and making them data-driven. For human combat, the team fixed numerous smaller bugs and issues. They also added various polish features, including a close-range shove attack that allows the AI to respond rapidly to the player or other NPCs getting too close. AI features then continued to tweak, refine, and bug fix perception and investigation when used by group behaviors. Group perception time is now used to determine how long a target has been out of range rather than the individuals. The time before they time out, they go into investigation and then return to idle the time before they time out and go into investigation and return to idle was reduced too. Progress was also made on an AI weapon interface and dynamic condition weapons. For example, when weapons change from rapid fire to single fire when overheating. The team also prototyped tech for AI bounding overwatch, which relates to NPCs coordinating to traverse cover when moving to an area. This requires changes to TPS system to enable AI to find cover positions or paths. A lot of this does not feel like Star Citizen. It's probably more focused on Squadron, but these features are probably Squadron stuff that is also being carried over into Star Citizen. There's a lot of features we'll see in Star Citizen, in monthly reports, like AI, is really talking about both games rather than just one or the other. Simply because when they implement it in Squadron, they implement it in Star Citizen. It's just some of those features aren't turned on in Star Citizen because of performance problems. So some of the stuff is likely in the files themselves right now. They just aren't activated. So, but I could be wrong. But just keep that in mind, that especially when you're talking about the technical stuff like engines and AI, a lot of this is double duty with Squadron. Back when they did Squadron monthly reports, often they would just copy and paste several sections of the Star Citizen monthly report and put it into the Squadron report. AI Game Intelligence Development Team. In July, the Game Intelligence Development Team continued to work on the prototype for Mission System version 2. This involved moving node states in graphs and reflecting them in copy, paste, and undo. The streaming profiler was also elaborated. The Entity Component Update Scheduler, ECUS, is a core system that determines what's in range and provides the fundamental proximity information for all streaming decisions. Furthermore, visual prototypes were developed for the Density Profiler, which pre-visualizes large scenes when there are too many entities. It includes a choice of pixel level and or volume level to quickly identify problematic areas. The team also continued to fix various small bugs and worked on features requested and suggested by the game designers to improve StarScript. So this is not the first time we've heard of Mission System version 2, but it's all exclusively been in AI development. We know that the Mission System V2 has been in active development and been partially implemented, at least, in the game already. But this is the third month I think they've talked about V2 around AI. So we don't know what this means. We don't know if this is also related to dynamic missions as well. But it definitely seems to be heavily focusing on developers being able to use AI for their missions. So it's more of a application of tools for developers to work with missions. So they don't need to bother the AI team as much. They can just kind of do it on their own. AI tech. AI tech began this month improving navigation. For example, they fixed island connections for the planetary navigation mesh and made link improvements to navigation types and metrics, something they've been doing for a while. Navigation has been a huge push for AI tech over the last 2 months. Flags can now be added to navigation crossed areas to prevent NPCs from stopping within them, while updates to the tactical point system prevent points from generating in areas where NPCs are not allowed to stop. This is an older system that's been mentioned a while back. It's been in Star Citizen Lives and Star Citizen, inside Star Citizens before. Effectively, NPCs are given points, and depending on how much points they have, will determine, and their labels will determine how they take paths. So certain NPCs, which might be more ambitious, will take more dangerous routes, and more ambitious NPCs that have less points allocated to them might make more mistakes or be slower over terrain versus others. So it's a way of taking an NPC, an AI entity, and then giving them more personality so that they don't just do the same thing every time. They're going to do things that's a little bit different to keep you on your toes. So you may find a pusher archetype coming at you, but how they engage you is designed to be dynamic. It might change depending on the personality of that pusher. That's effectively what a lot of this tech is. For ship AI, updates were made to various movement blocks following the addition of new features, while the new flight movement request type was implemented to blend ship movements to splines. They've been talking about splines for this stuff forever. Optimizations were also made to the vision components, such as preventing lock condition from submitting or canceling raycasts. It's just how AI see the world. So, like, to engage and not engage and so on. For tools, the team added support for dragging and dropping multiple items into Starscript's outline view. They also added display platforms and layer names as part of the variable types in outline view, and made improvements to conversations view. New functionality was also added to the flow graph to let designers mark which subsumption global function behaviors are allowed to be used in scripting logic. For the usable builder, support was added for helper geometry and for selecting a usable channel for testing rather than an animation. Usable setup changes are now directly applied to the entity without needing to reload the tool too. Finally, for UI tech, fixes were made to various small issues such as name alignment slot not displaying properly, attached entities snapping to the wrong locations, and helpers not validating properly. Okay, so usable builder support was for helper geometry and for selecting a usable channel for testing rather than animation. Enabled usable setup changes are now directly applied to the entity without needing to reload. I don't quite know what that is. Then we got animation. This is a big one. Last month, the team progressed with new ship enter-exit template animation alongside pickups for bespoke gameplay features for an upcoming PU release. This is awesome. People have been complaining about the enter-exit animations for a long time. They're very slow and they kind of are awkward. And so maybe we'll see these be a little bit sped up or a little bit less precise, I guess, a little bit sloppier. The facial animation team processed contents from June's performance capture shoot, including several new mission givers and a mini boss. They then worked alongside narrative to create and finalize animations for various TV broadcast characters that will populate the verse, including James Harriman. Yes! Yes! Holy shit, yes! This is... Oh, now, for those of you who know my lore content, a lot of the lore we get comes from basically transcripts of live broadcasts in the verse. So we already have several staple shows that exist in the lore of Star Citizen. Star Watch, it's one of them. Booty Call, The Plain Truth. All of these are different shows that have different aspects of society. Now, CIG's writers have been using these to flesh out the world, both in terms of world building, but also specific stuff that they've been working on and the game has been. We haven't had a transcript release from these shows in about 3 to 4 years. They stopped doing that when they started focusing more on gameplay narrative, and because they were focusing on pyro and other things like that. But they've been talking about for several years wanting to bring these into the verse so that players can watch these content as it occurs to update the players in the game about the actions that are going on in the lore, so you have context. Like there's a bounty hunter show, mercenary show. There are shows, like I said, Star Watch, like kind of celebrities. There's pirate broadcasts. There's conspiracy theorist shows. There's news broadcasts. There's lots of cool stuff. So this is amazing. This is good. That means hopefully we'll see them in game, and maybe in the future we'll be able to actually tune into these broadcasts to watch them ourselves, which is great. Devs were also back to set with mocap with narrative teams capturing additional content for Alpha 4.3.1 and future releases. Art characters. The character arc spent the month creating new armors and armor variants. Meanwhile, the concept art team prepared handoff sheets and began the exploration phase for new flight suits alongside requests from other teams. Art ships. All right, y'all. This is why you're watching this. I'm going to bait the hell out of this one. So you're going to watch this because of this. But in the UK, the Anvil Paladin had its gray box gate review. This highlighted some challenges with the side turret setup, resulting in further rounds of iteration to get something that plays well, while also adhering to the original concept. So, the Anvil Paladin has failed its gray box gate review. It's not a bad thing. Ships fail them all the time. It's just more so that they can get a better idea about what's going to happen, which means that it will probably come up again next month for another chance at passing its review. If it does, then it goes to Lot 0, from Lot 0, then to Final Art. These can take a variety of time. There's really no real 100% time variance, but generally speaking, 1 to 2 months is a good baseline, and then the larger the ship, the longer you go. Paladin's like a medium-large ship, so my best estimated guess is if it passes its gray box review in August, then it might release in December. This will be like one of those last end of the year things at the earliest. But it could also end up being held until Invictus, because it's a great Invictus ship as well, which would be a while, but we'll see. Further navigation flow updates were made to the Drake Ironclad, including new elevators and revised staircase locations to improve traversal times around the ship. The Ironclad Assault also progressed through White Box, with the team implementing the key differences between it and the base. This is where I take the controversial take. The Ironclad is not coming this year. I'm making that prediction. We are not going to see the Ironclad this year. As I just said, the larger the ship, the longer it takes to go through its phase. The Assault isn't even out of White Box yet. So it has to release out of White Box, go into Gray Box, then go through Gray Box, and head into Lot 0, from Lot 0 to Final Art, and from Final Art to release. It's a larger ship. We're talking at least 6 to 9 months before we see it release. So it's likely not going to release until Invictus of next year. Around that, I guess. It's definitely not this year for Ironclad, not the Assault. For either, honestly. The Assault, I imagine a lot of the reuse of assets for the Assault is going to speed it up a little bit, because it's just a small variant. It depends on, again, if those new assets they add in are complicated or need a lot of review. But it's basically adding a couple of guns and changing some of the geometry up a little bit. But some of the space and the geometry, but it doesn't physically change the whole of the ship. So, yeah. The RSI Meteor was also launched into the PU alongside full interior retrofit for the Mantis. 4 unannounced vehicles progressed down the pipeline too. First was kicked off and is approaching the end of its White Box phase, while the second passed its White Box review and progressed into Gray Box. Some issues around its cargo mechanism were identified during the review, but were rectified afterwards. The third continued through development, with all of its rooms receiving further geometry refinement alongside additional animation work for its moving elements. The final continued unannounced vehicle passed a combined gate review. This is done to provide more time for the audio, UI, VFX teams to add additional details with the aim of settling new standards and disciplines. Aha! So they're using a ship that is going to change how they do ships in the future. So that's interesting. So I also want to make sure the unannounced vehicles thing means that we have not heard of these vehicles. This does also include the L-21 Wolf, because it was never been officially announced as the L-21 Wolf. We kind of know it was the Kruger fighter, but it's never been officially said as that. So one of those ships is likely the L-21 Wolf, unless they mention it further down here, but I don't think they. So these are brand new ships or variants of ships which we have not seen before. So there are 4. One is in white box, and it is going into it's to end of white box. The second is in gray box, which has some cargo attached to it. The third is we don't know. It's just through development. Through development, this room is receiving further geometry refinement alongside additional animation work for its moving elements. And the final one is doing a combined gate review. So it sounds like they're going from least developed to most developed. So I wouldn't be surprised if the third ship is in Lot 0 or final art. And then the final announced ship is basically, this is probably the L21. This is likely the next vehicle they're releasing with either 4.3 or with 4.3 that we know for sure. That's the cruiser ship. So, and if you don't know about the L21 Wolf, it is on the latest splash screen of 4.3. So, looks cool. This is this might be the Perseus. I think it's not the Perseus though. I think this is the Apollo. I think this is the new cockpit for the Apollo based off of the geometry. So. In North America, the RSI Apollo Medivac and Triage passed their Lot 0 reviews and are now in the final stages. So the Lot 0 is in final art. It is now the Lot 0. The Apollo is now in the final art. It's past Lot 0 and in the final art. So the Apollo is a couple of months away from release. Almost certainly CitizenCon or IAE. And are now final stages with damage setup, paints, and LOD levels being created. The RSI Perseus progressed through into LOD 0 phase. The exterior is now receiving the fine detail work, visually bringing it into line with the RSI ships. So the Perseus is a little bit bigger than the Apollo, but as everyone thinks it's bigger than it is. It's actually not as big as you think. So it's likely probably going to be released by the end of the year. Not by October, but I can see November or December. Finally, the Drake Kraken had further pre-production work done. This identified more areas where kits from the Ironclad will help speed up production, as well as some more challenging internal areas that require updated concept time, such as engineering and the recently added small medical facility. It's now confirmed that the Kraken's getting a medical facility, which is good. All right, so what do we know from ships? Kraken's being worked on. Perseus is probably before the end of the year. The Apollo is definitely before the end of the year. The L21 Wolf is likely the last one that I mentioned, which is on its way in. We've got a ship that's in white box, a ship that's into gray box, and another one that's sort of somewhere between gray box and release. Likely. The Ironclad is still in gray box or white box, so it's going to be a while, and the Paladin is heading into Lot 0, so it's probably maybe by the end of the year, maybe a little bit later. So, community. Much of July was spent on ensuring player feedback was landing in the front of the relevant developers' teams, alongside ongoing planning and support for the upcoming CitizenCon Direct. The team also continued to evergreen tasks like the roadmap updates and roundups and the Marina Commander schedule update, and monthly reports like this one. July also kicked off the Foundation Festival, which accompanied by a post explaining how to join the guild guide system, alongside showcasing the rewards for participating. The team shared the new player essentials post featuring the collection of resources to help newcomers get started, an org spotlight com link highlighting several player organizations recruiting new members, and the kindness and camaraderie screenshot contest that challenged players to share heartwarming moments of teamwork and friendship. Additionally, July marked the debut of the revamped referral program, including an improved user experience and refreshed rewards that unlock more frequently. For the launch of Alpha 4.2.1, the team published the Resource Drive FAQ, covering key details about the event. And a Q&A for the RSI Meteor was also released, answering questions about the new ship and highlighting improvements to the RSI Mantis and Quantum Interdiction system. Following up on June's Alien Week, the team released a digital cookbook featuring alien-themed recipes submitted by players for the Wicklow Taste Contest. Like this. Funny, a lot of people have been like oohing and awing about Battlefield 6's drag system, and I'm like, first time? The month wrapped up with the launch of Ship Showdown 2955 as players began rallying behind their favorite flyable drivable vehicles by submitting the original creations to the community hub and X. Last we saw, our goat, our champion, our giant slayer, the gladiator, is currently in the lead for the underdog division. So if you are here, go to the community find anyone posting about the gladiator and give it a thumbs up. Help that thing rally. I'm going to be doing some other things as well, which may not make it to the first stages, but hopefully when it gets into the final stages, we'll give it some boost there. So keep that up there. Also the X85, I guess, because it's there. Bar Citizen World Tour continued with 2 stops, Quantum Vegas and the here's me right here. Quantum Vegas and the Tampa Bar Citizen, where both events brought together new and familiar faces for energetic, heartfelt chips. And this is why am I blanking on her name? I have her name. Sin. That's Sin right there. So, and there's Danny Raymond. See all these wonderful folks. Fast Cart. Some of you may be seeing yourself in this as well if you've been watching this. So, make sure to check out Quantum Vegas. We might be doing another one next year. We should be doing another one next year. So if you want to join the community, the North American community, to come together and talk about Star Citizen, hang out with other community members, and maybe get some CIG members to talk about cool stuff, come join us. Core gameplay. Now, this is big. This is a thick boy. And that's because they have taken basically all of their disparate teams that worked on like FPS, flight, and all these sorts of things, and they sort of slammed them together into one big group. Throughout July, the core gameplay team focused on freight elevators, providing fixes for critical details raised during the Resource Drive event, while also improving the debugging tools alongside the QA team. This will ensure that future issues can be triaged faster with more initial information for investigation. It has improved, I will say that as the hotfixes and other things have gone out, it seems like the freight elevators are working more frequently, but it's still, close to a 50% ratio of failure in my experience. So it's still a coin flip if you get them, but it is better than it used to be. Hopefully 4.3 brings further improvements. Work was also done alongside online technology on contact generation and how missions utilize locations, both in terms of finding and reserving to prevent them from becoming overrun. Immediate fixes were implemented and several future improvements were planned. So the bonfire that is the Resource Drive is actually, according to CIG, leading to improvements in how they're going to fix the game in the future, which is nice. So and then round 2, they pit it against something stupid and it gets stomped. They're going to pit the 85X against the Gladiator. They're going to make us choose our babies to fight. I'm sorry, PD. That meme of the guy crying with the gun, that's going to be me with the 85X. If they do that, I'm sorry. We'll pump the little guy for next year. Core gameplay also improved the spawning flow to allow for another attempt of players spawning directly into their personal hangars instead of their home location hab. They did that with 4.3 Evocati. They had that activated, but I don't know if it's in 4.3 PTU, but it was activated in Evocati. This work also paves the way for allowing players to spawn where they are within reason, where they were within reason. So they are working on that process so that they can have you log out, and when you log back in, you're back where you were, which is interesting. 4.3 is still hangar spawn, so that's good. It is whatever they did has worked. Core Gameplay began technical work towards refreshing parts of the inventory and continued bug fixing for freight elevators. Crafting, the team continued reevaluating the scope for the first public release, while inventory UI concepts shown recently on Star Citizen Live entered development, with the team doing preparation work and setting up the new canvas. So for those of you who don't know, the crafting has been completed in terms of what we saw at CitizenCon. It has been completed and works in the game, and it has UI, but it is developer UI or coder UI, not full UI. So they've been tweaking the elements as they go through. And it seems like what they're doing now is trying to focus on what degree are they going to have crafting work and what are they going to have in terms of crafting for the first initial release. Because they're not going to turn it on and be like, you can craft everything. It'll probably just be like FPS weapons, armor, utility stuff, like, tractor beams, the sort of smaller, more reasonable things that they can control over. Because it's not just crafting, it's also having to introduce new materials, which will allow for when you craft your custodian, it's not just the custodian, it's the custodian plus. So. For hacking, wow, this is the second time they've mentioned hacking in 3 months. That's great. More options were added to help teach players how to use the feature alongside bug fixing. We might get hacking in the next 6 months or so, chat. That looks pretty good. Does that mean that we're going to get hacking this year? No. Okay? Do not take that. Them saying they're working on hacking does not mean we're getting hacking this year. They could have a complete hacking minigame functioning and tested, and if it even hints at any sort of stability problem, they would rip it out instantly. So don't keep that in mind with all of the gameplay features we're talking from here on out. Just because they're talking about them and they're working on the first initial steps doesn't mean we're going to see them soon, because this is still CIG prioritizing performance over new features. So core gameplay also supported weapon content in implementing a bespoke flap animation used for the charge-up sequences of the Volt sniper weapon. I saw engineering gameplay enter tech preview preparation, with the devs moving the code into a new staging system. They also added the ability to limit the number of active items per pool. Thruster temperatures are now visible on the screen, and the iconography between the diagnostics and engineering screens have been unified. The team also added further damage balance modifiers, for example, making fuses on sturdier ships harder to destroy. Diagnostics also received severity filters and item categories to make it easier to identify critical issues. So it sounds like their engineering gameplay tech preview is likely to come out in the next couple of months. Maybe August, but I'm guessing probably more like September. They'll likely want to release it before CitizenCon in some way, shape, or form. I've said this before, but it does seem like CIG is trying to get engineering in some sort of state for release. Engineering, scanning, crafting, possibly even base building. That last one's probably a little more. Yeah, those three things are definitely the next big features they're going to release. It's just a matter of when and how. And this is a tech preview, so it doesn't necessarily bode well for release this year, because they've done tech previews in the past, and usually it's like 6 to 9 months before we see it out of tech preview. So 6 months from now is 2026. So keep that in mind. As part of the ongoing Looting and Harvest Tool Quality of Life initiative, the team completed a new implementation of loot generation. This system is twice as fast as the previous version and includes better controls for the designers alongside improved debug tools. That's something they've been doing for a while, trying to improve the system overall. The, quote, item expiry, unquote, feature kicked off, which will allow for the designers to define the functionality lifetime of items. This is intended for items such as key cards that are only meant to be usable for a limited amount of time before they become non-functional. An item's expiry date and timer will be visible in the inventory progress on item recovery tier 1 continued, including various setup and debug tool tasks. That's interesting, because that seems like CIG is developing tier 1, which is important because tier 1 is connected directly to crafting. So we need crafting in order for tier 1 to exist. So that's a big one. The team completed the refactor of quantum interdiction for server meshing, which was released in Alpha 4.2.1, which it works. I've been quantum interdicted by NPCs. There's still a few outstanding tasks to complete that will be delivered as part of a future release. The team also continued to work on the flight system. For example, Control Surface's fly-by-wire system was finished, which will feed pilot commands to the IFCS to correctly adjust control surfaces and atmosphere, much like a modern fighter jet. This also included the implementation of auto-trimming and various bugs that came out of playtesting. This is a great example. The IFCS retool is directly connected to Maelstrom and engineering. It seems like as they developed Maelstrom and engineering, they realized that they needed to simplify the IFCS system a little bit to make it so that you have more direct control over your ship. Because right now the system really guides a lot of movement, and they seem to have wanted to remove some of that hand-holding to make it more like Elite's assist off mode. Because the tools they were developing with engineering and Maelstrom and probably other things were starting to show that they needed to. Or things like the dreaded blades, flight blades. Those are examples because they wanted to be able to manipulate the IFCS system so a little bit. So, but this is also another example of someone has actually reverse engineered the control surfaces because it was added into the game, just not activated. Someone managed to get that activated, and it is rough. Like, it is not good. But it's their first pass. This is obviously, they're continuing to work on it. You'd still give it a couple of months before it's fully implemented. For quantum travel, the team continued working on implementation of the new mechanics. I've seen people ask this before with quantum travel, because there's lots of problems with quantum travel. Why don't they change or fix quantum travel? Because they're rebuilding quantum travel from the ground up, or they already have with Squadron, and they're trying to implement it with Star Citizen with server meshing. They just haven't had that yet. FPS radar and scanning saw additional progress through July, with further improvements allowing the designers to define custom scanned data. AI can now react to being scanned and respond accordingly. Players are also able to identify if enemy NPCs have a radar equipped and could perceive the player's scanning. FPS and radar and scanning is also connected directly to the new ship scanning. So, the ongoing transport refactor continued. Transport refactor is the old transit system. It's completely changed to what's called transport refactor, with additional work for dynamic destinations such as instanced hangars. Core gameplay also supported the content teams in delivering the recent resource drive and escort missions. For the upcoming August release, core gameplay worked with the content teams to expose more controls for item rewards. Additional support for the mechanics of an upcoming creature was also provided. Perhaps a Yorit-based feature? Alas, Yorit, I knew him, Sam. The team then invested time in addressing critical issues, preventing the usage of drop-off locations that are required for an upcoming set of missions. Various bugs, edge cases, and exploits were also addressed. So, that's thick. It's a lot of stuff. Oh, there's a lot of things coming down the pipe, from scanning to quantum travel to the control surfaces and flight changes, quantum interdiction, item exploration, looting and harvestables, engineering, hacking, crafting, and then there's stuff like freight elevators, respawn, or spawning in, that kind of stuff. A lot of cool stuff that's getting done. All right. Economy, one of my favorites. The economy team is currently analyzing their recent community poll. We would like to thank everyone for the extremely useful feedback that you provided. Your answers will help us better prioritize our focus for the next few months. Hopefully you did respond to that. I tried to promote that as much as possible because it's always good when you see them doing polls and surveys. So they had a survey out. They asked people to do, and I did it, and I know a couple other people did too in my community. So you did, good job. They also reviewed engagement metrics for the new content introduced this year, with the aim of balancing it in a way that's both fun and fair. As an ongoing effort to make the game more accessible, the team are adding the ammunition used by most FPS weapons to a significant number of shops. Now players should be able to find the ammo of their favorite weapons more easily. However, ammo for those more special weapons will remain exclusive. Does that mean they're adding the custodian ammo to like the pyro shops finally? Mission design. Elliot and the team. The mission design team monitored the resource drive event to see how players interacted with the event, fixed small exploits, and helped engineering fix the mission generation system. They looked at the old locations that were included in Alpha 4.0 refactor and therefore didn't currently have missions. Once complete, the players will see existing combat missions begin to target some of these locations. Alongside this, the team supported Alpha 4.3 deliverables by creating missions that encourage players to engage with the new content. Wicklow also received new missions and new cosmetics. Balancing tweaks were made and work began on the accept mission in world system. There we go. I don't know if CIG actually watches any of these. I doubt they do, but if you are a current player, I will also like to extend something, which is there are many aspects of Star Citizen 3.0 that the team at CIG has currently abandoned, especially missions. Now, obviously, there's some more important ones like racing and box delivery missions, just the 1/8 SCU ones. But we also have things like the Black Kite, and even group places like Ghost Hollow don't exist anymore. They don't work. So I'd love for them to revisit these old, I know they're not as sexy to revisit these older ones, but it would be nice to bring that work into 4.0, because right now it sets the precedent that CIG is willing to abandon stuff they've done in the past if it's no longer convenient or cool, and simply work on new content, which would leave a lot of skeletons and useless content, which is unaccessible by most of the player base, just laying about rather than used. So I think it would be a drag on assets, let alone the work that other people at CIG have done over the years. So, all right, narrative. Last month, the narrative team were deeply involved in getting the upcoming Alpha 4.3 patch ready for release by refining and tweaking the mission text, objectives, UI screens, and branding to deliver the cohesive narrative experience at the new location. The team also had a performance capture session that covered content for several upcoming patches. Narrative have been doing smaller and more frequent capture sessions this year to better match the cadence that needs to be to a release cycle. Additionally, the teams crafted mission text and placeholder scripts for several gameplay scenarios that will be introduced later this year. Because we need to record scripts far enough in advance for the material to be processed and placed in game, we work with design to record additional material to account for any future adjustments that may need to be made as the gameplay is polished. It's a careful balancing act between getting extra coverage and not bogging down sessions with material that will never be used. Also, the team began filling additional details for an upcoming location, honing specifics to help further guide art and design as they populated with locations and gameplay. They also crafted lore for a new ship seller, with the narrative team hopes will be fun added to the verse. Does that mean a narrative ship seller, like a place where you can buy ships, or is that like Kruger or a brand new ship company? It's good. Online technology. Live tools improved how developers report bugs to the crash handler, making it more reliable. It also supports a wider range of cases to help catch and resolve issues faster than ever. The online services team worked on the Stow Context API and supported missions on both the server and game sides. Tasks for the Blueprint library also began, with API development planned for August. Finally, the team continued their work and discussions on the item imprint version 1. That's interesting. R&D. In July, the R&D's team focus shifted exclusively to analyzing performance and optimizing engine and game code. This will remain the primary focus for the foreseeable future. Basically, the R&D team is no longer going to be working on anything cool and sexy. They're mostly focusing on making the game run, which is a good sign that CIG is, again, pointed towards a 1.0. Does that mean 1.0 is coming out soon? Absolutely not. But CIG is not a nimble speedboat. It is a gigantic tanker, and it takes them a long time to start maneuvering. So a lot of the, especially blue sky shit that they're doing for, right now, the stuff that's being planned out in the deep future, that stuff is being done now for results in 6 to 9 to 12 months away. So keep that in mind. UI team continued to support an upcoming gameplay event, contributing more interactive and environmental screens than ever before. This followed the usual process of working closely with the game designers to create the layout, finding the look with concept art, and then working with tech design to implement them in the game. Devs also started work with the inventory UI that was revealed in Star Citizen Live, earning in the verse. It's a complex UI that covers several things for future gameplay, so we'll be working on it for a while. As they said in that video, it is not coming anytime soon. It requires a lot of different gameplay to be finished, which we likely won't see this year. Cool. So we're probably going to see it next year-ish, but we'll see. Finally, the team created a dashboard and MFD UI for an upcoming vehicle, which has several unique visual features. Lastly, VFX. VFX main focus throughout July was Alpha 4.3, including new locations, bespoke events, vehicles, and weapons. They also began preparing for Alpha 3.1 as related tasks started to arrive. So, what can we hear? All right, so summary. This is a pretty big one. I will say this is the most busy I have seen CIG in July in a long time. The basic gist is AI's team has been working on the stuff they've been working on for several months. Wildlines, improving mission systems. And then we have, what was after that? Animation is starting to work on new animations for, the new template for entering and exiting ships. And also straight up TV shows that will be played in the Star Citizen universe to add more context to the universe. Well, as long as like a mini boss, there's multiple mentions of bosses in this one, an AI boss, they mentioned mini boss and animation. So there is some sort of boss fight that they're building that they want to release to the verse. New armors are coming, ships, we've got 4 unannounced ships plus the Paladin, Meteor was journalist. The Medevac and Triage, the Apollo, and the Perseus, along with I think it's going to be on the thumbnail. The Ironclad and the Kraken. All of which are, the Kraken and the Ironclad are still ways out. So we've got 4 unannounced ships, plus the Perseus and the Apollo, which are all probably going to be released this year. So that's 6. Yeah, 6 ships. And let's see how many months we have left, chat. We've got 5 months left and 6 ships in the pipeline. Or no, 7, because we also have the that are probably going to make it. Plus we have the Paladin. So yeah, that's what, 2 or 3 ships for a month, and then 1 ship for every month since then. Is that right? Yeah, lots of ships. Community's doing cool stuff as always. The core gameplay, hacking, engineering, flight controls, crafting, looting, working on being able to spawn to when you log out, you log back in, you are literally where you were before. Quantum travel, radar, transport refactor, new items, a lot of work on freight elevators, a lot of emphasis on freight elevators and how they could, the problems with resource rush, they identified them and are trying to fix those in the future. Economy updates, new mission designs, narrative, new narrative stuff, especially when it comes to like UI and new content. And quite honestly, there's a lot of mention of 4.3, but there's almost as many mentions of 4.3.1. So it sounds like CIG is now firing on all cylinders. Not only are they working on 4.3, which is again to be released this month, but they're working on the things going to be released in September, ostensively 4.3.1. So we might start seeing mentions of 4.3.2 or even 4.3 or even 4.3.3 or 4.4 or maybe even 4.4.1 being mentioned next month. How quickly they are picking up this pace, because a lot of CIG's teams seem to be working towards, working faster towards the goals that they have. Overall, it seems like a very productive month in July. As always, I want to hear your thoughts down below on anything we've said. And if you enjoyed this, once again, like the video, subscribe for more content like this, and hit the bell icon to be notified when videos release and when we go live on Thursdays at twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPub live, to join these wonderful folks who will lie to you and tell you this is pre-recorded. Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Would love to have you join us there. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday.